Samsung just announced the all-new Galaxy S23 line of phones. They promised improved cameras and performance. But here are 5 reasons why you might want to skip on the Galaxy S23 line this year. Number 5, performance. Samsung spoke quite a bit about the all-new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor and how the 8 Gen 2 processor inside the Galaxy S23 was actually designed for Samsung. Now, does that mean that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor inside the Galaxy S23 line will perform better than another smartphone with a Snapdragon Gen 2 processor? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I don't expect much of a leap in performance this year when it comes to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor and the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 inside the Galaxy S22 line was a nice improvement from the previous generation, and performance was still great. When it comes to battery life, the S23 Ultra has the same size battery as the S22 Ultra, and the S23 and S23 Plus have a slightly bigger battery, 200 mAh to be exact, when compared to the S22 and S22 Plus. So I don't expect battery life to be drastically better either. All in all, performance was great on the S22 line of phones, and it will be slightly better on the S23 line of phones. So if you're looking for a huge performance bump, you might want to hold off on this phone. Number 4, price tag. The Galaxy S23 models come in at the same price tag as the previous S22 models. $799, $999, and $1199. Now, these aren't cheap phones by any means, but there's never been more competition than there is now. If you're looking for a smartphone in 2023, there are some really great options out there that are actually cheaper than the S23 line. The Pixel 7, for example, starts at $599, which is a crazy good deal. And we'll probably be getting a cheaper Pixel 7a coming soon as well. And even Samsung's own Galaxy A series phones are getting better and better, and they might make you think twice about buying the S23 phones. Now, of course, those are mid-range phones, and the S23 is a flagship, but when you can save $200, $300, or even more and go with one of these other phones, is the S23 line really worth it? Well, that's going to be up to you. But I will say, if price tag is a big part of your buying decision, you might want to skip on the S23 line and take a look at some of the other options available. Number 3 is design. Look, if you were hoping for a refreshed design with the S23 phones this year, you're going to be disappointed. The S23 Ultra looks almost identical to the S22 Ultra with its more boxy design. You're getting the S Pen built inside the phone again this year, and there really isn't much differentiating this phone on the outside to the S22 Ultra. The S23 and S23 Plus have a new design on the camera bump. There's no more metal surrounding the individual camera sensors, and instead you just have the camera sensors protruding out on their own, much like the S22 Ultra introduced. I personally really like the camera bump on the S22 and S22 Plus much more than the individual camera sensors protruding out from the back of the phone. I still think to this day the S21 Ultra had one of the best designs in a smartphone. But it looks like Samsung has taken a different approach this year, so really when it comes to design, Samsung hasn't changed much, and we're getting more of the same with some minor changes for the worse, in my opinion. If you wanted a better and refreshed design, you might want to skip on the S23 line. Number 2 is cameras. Now, Samsung spent most of the time talking about the new and improved camera system in the S23 line of phones. The Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra is getting an all-new 200 megapixel wide-angle camera sensor, which is ridiculous, honestly. But of course, megapixels don't always translate to better photos and video. They talked about all these new AI features and nightography modes, and while that sounds great, we have seen Samsung talk about these new software improvements to their phones before, and in reality, the photos and videos were just slightly improved on their latest flagship. When you look at the S23 and S23 Plus and you compare it to the S22 and S22 Plus, you're getting pretty much the same sensors minus an improved 12 megapixel selfie camera on the S23 line. But last generation's S22 Ultra actually had a 40 megapixel selfie camera, while the new S23 Ultra only has a 12 megapixel selfie camera. Not sure if that's actually going to translate to better photos or video for that selfie camera. but I just wasn't overly impressed with the cameras this year. No doubt they will be better, but how much better? We'll just have to wait and see. Plus, I have some reservations on that 200 megapixel wide angle camera on the S23 Ultra. The last time Samsung introduced an all new high megapixel camera sensor on the S line was the S20 Ultra, and that kind of was a disaster. And it wasn't until the S21 Ultra that they actually figured out how to utilize that high megapixel count. But we'll have to wait and see. And number 1, the S22 line. The number 1 reason you might want to skip on the S23 line of phones this year is because you can probably get a great deal on the S22 line of phones. Not only can you find them on sale, but they're still a fantastic smartphone. They're only a year old, and as I've discussed, there isn't much of a difference between the S22 line and the S23 line. For the S22 Ultra, you're getting a great camera system, S Pen support, powerful Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor, and an all-around great smartphone. The S22 and S22 Plus also have great cameras and the same powerful processor. If you look online, Best Buy already has the S22 Ultra for $150 cheaper, brand new, or you can get a refurbished unit for $400 cheaper. That's honestly a great savings for an excellent smartphone. Now, if you have any of the S22 line of phones, I think it goes without saying you might want to skip on the S23 line this year and just wait for the S24 next year. Either way, if you're looking for a great deal on a flagship smartphone, now might be the best time ever to look at the S22 line of smartphones. And those are the top 5 reasons why you might want to skip on the Galaxy S23 this year. Now, that doesn't mean that this is not a great phone, because this is definitely the best Galaxy S phone Samsung has ever made. But the differences this year aren't all that great. Of course, there are plenty of reasons to actually consider the Galaxy S23. And if you want to see a top 5 reasons why you should buy the Galaxy S23, leave a comment down below and I'll make sure to get that video out as soon as possible. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos just like this one on tech news, reviews, and opinions, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. And I'll see you on the next one.